Hello and welcome to the BA Brew. I'm Mike.
I'm Christina.
I'm Jonathan.
And today we're talking about how to make an impact as a BA, which has come up as a subject after Jonathan and Christina had a bit of a discussion. So Jonathan, would you like to sort of introduce, just give us an introduction to what you were talking about with Christina and why we're having this pod now?
So I met Christina last year as part of the process for the BA of the Year award, which I was privileged to be part of, and I was just blown away by Christina's professionalism and her enthusiasm for the business analysis profession. And I really wanted to ask Christina if she'd be happy to join us and talk about how she makes an impact, what she does, and tips for self-development and effectiveness. And so it's I'm hopefully we have an interesting conversation. But Christina, what's your recollection of our conversation?
I think we're very much aligned with that. That's my recollection of our last conversation. We talked about I think sort of what makes an effective BA, but we also touch on elements around the themes of having an impact as a BA in your profession and what it means. And I think we talk about, within your profession, within your organization, but also what it means to the wider community, and so how the wider community could help to elevate individual BAs. So I thought that was a really interesting conversation that we could have today.
Yeah, so there's quite a few themes there that we could follow, really, and so you've got lots of different areas that you're making an impact and being quite effective in. So where would you like to sort of start? How do you make an impact in terms of performing business analysis within your own organisation to start with?
Yeah, I think that having an impact might mean different things to people. I think could be slightly subjective, but I will welcome your thoughts. But I think I'm happy to start off with kind of what it means to me, and what it means to me. It revolves around sort of how I sort of represent myself and the company I'm representing to help transform mindsets and to help deliver, and how I could also, on top of that, help elevate others around me. And in terms of the judgment and of your impact, I would probably say a lot of it comes from things like feedback and testimonies. But having one's, I guess, being self-reflective definitely helps one to get some indication of how much impact you've had internally before you kind of seek that feedback. So I always think it's really quite interesting to hear people's thoughts on what it means, and I welcome your thoughts, Mike and Jonathan, in terms of what impact means to you.
So one of the things I think about for impact inside the organisation is what will I be remembered for when I've left?
Yeah.
So after I've left the organisation, because either I've resigned or retired, or maybe I've got the sack, I don't know. What will I be remembered for, and therefore what impact have I had? And the other thing I think about is outcomes and organisational or business outcomes. So have I helped improve a process? Have I saved the organisation some money? Have I helped the organisation be more flexible and agile for the future? And then Christine, you touched on your impact on others in the organisation. You mentioned mindset. So have I helped others develop their skill, their knowledge? Have I introduced new learning, new ways of thinking? And has that outlasted me? Because if you're going to make an impact, once you've gone, the people should still be able to use the tools, the techniques, the knowledge that they've acquired, either from sharing it between themselves or perhaps from learning through seeing you do it, or you explaining something to them. But can they remember and apply it after you've gone? And we mentioned in our pre-pod discussion this book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And one of his habits is to begin with the end in mind, which is why, for the organisational context, I think, right, what's the end point? I've left the organisation. What's the end? What will people say about me? What will I've done? What's the outcomes that we've achieved? Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking. I was thinking more on a sort of practical, individual engagement level. That thinking about what the end is in mind there. Sometimes the contractual bit of the work you're doing says you're going to produce a business case, you're going to produce this, that, and the other, some process models, etc. And actually, it's not just about that, is it? It's all well and good doing those things and doing those things well, but there's much more communication, there's much more engagement with people. And actually, for me, it's about making sure that multiple things are better. You're not just delivering a good quality business case or a good process model. Actually, have you made a difference to some people? Is there something that's now more effective? Is it better for the customer? Is it better for the people that are trying to engage in that process? Is there some kind of elevation of understanding as well? And you've got to look beyond the job description to find that. And I don't know what sort of things inspire you to do that, or what experience have you had that spur you on to do more of that?
So when I think of making the impact, and I suppose thinking about the how of it, I think there's some key ingredients that I think could be quite dynamic when you kind of put yourself out of a project and into a new one. The dynamics would change. You have to kind of find a new set of formula. There's no static formula for this, but I think some common ingredients probably that I would think of is, well, okay, what differentiates how I deliver versus how others do? I think that comes from a bit of self-reflection and self-awareness, and looking at how in that particular environment or ecosystem that you're in, how do you demonstrate sort of credibility so that you can, I guess the next point is influence. What's your level of influence? How could you influence? What can you do now versus what you can do in the future? So I guess laying out some, I suppose, manageable steps to get yourself, to a greater level of influence during your time in that engagement. And then being able, from following that point, to follow up to build your story to share with others, which means that you're then more in a position to share stories with not just internally but with the wider community. And from then on, kind of create a map of how you are sort of influencing change. So I think the first 2-3 points there can be quite dynamic, and you have to kind of tweak as you go along, as you place yourself into this new environment or new client engagement or new project. So yeah, I think these are the kind of key ingredients that I would be sort of looking at when it comes to the impactful about the how. And of course, I think it's a really interesting point that it's not just about taking a checklist. You have to think about the wider things. And one of the key words that actually just that I think sprang in my mind was legacy. I think that is ultimately it. Yeah. So yes, I think contractually you might have delivered something and you've left the program, but how would people remember you by going exactly? I think Jonathan's hit the nail on the head. It's like, what will people say about you? So, and that's why I said feedback, because you probably would find that if you sent out 360 feedbacks to a number of people, you will find some common factors, some common denominators. And I think that probably is some kind of indication of one's legacy that you might not see by just judging by your performance reviews and whatever. We need to see what people are saying about you that makes you think, well, this is how Christina's made a difference. This is how this individual's made a difference, and how it's stuck with them after a project's been delivered.
No, some really great points there, and I quite like that you're thinking about the legacy and have you improved the situation for people? Have you worked within the confines of the organisation, the project, to help improve things? One of the things I think about in relation to the question you asked, Mike, is purpose. So what's your purpose as a change professional, as a business analyst? And one of the things I think about relative to purpose is I want to solve problems, and I want to help organisations realise opportunities. I want to make the lives better for my colleagues in terms of their work, not doing duplicate, nonsensical processes. I want to make the product or service better for the customer, whatever that might be. So it's kind of I just want to improve things and make things better, and stewardship brings to mind in terms of that legacy. So as I'm helping to evolve a change, I'm thinking, is what's left after we've done the change, is it better than it would have been? Or is it as best as it possibly could be? And then the other thing I'm thinking about there is strategy. So does what we're doing in the change initiative align with the organization's strategy? Does it align with its long-term vision and mission? Are we contributing positively towards organizational objectives? And I'm thinking VMost here, but we've got to really contribute positively and importantly question and challenge appropriately when decisions are being made that may or may not positively contribute to the organization's long-term vision strategy. And it takes a lot of work to be confident enough to question and challenge, and also to do it in a way that is impactful in a positive way on your change initiative, because you're not doing asking questions for the sake of asking questions. You're not trying to challenge assumptions for the sake of it. You're doing it in order to hopefully improve the legacy, improve the outcomes for the organization. But the amount of work that it requires, and I think we can't underestimate the research you've got to do of your stakeholders, the time you've got to spend with your stakeholders, the time you've got to spend understanding the problem context, working out what the target state solutions might be. All of this work that we're doing, there's a load of effort there that maybe people don't see or don't recognize.
Yeah, it sort of brings to mind the idea of stories. We've got if you think about the work we do as BAs, that we start a story in a certain way, and there might be we might think we know where it's going to go and how it's going to progress, but things happen as we start that journey through the story that takes it off track. We meet some different characters, we find some different plot twists, and we might not end up, when we get to the end of the story, might not end up in the place where we thought we were going to end up. But hopefully, and it's not always a happy ending, but hopefully it's not a complete tragedy. We're more into happy stories than tragedies. But those stories, one of the things I really like is hearing about those stories, and that's something that I found really inspiring, going and getting involved in things outside of work. So stories are great in work, and you leave some of that, but hearing other people's stories, you can learn a lot from those stories. And Christina, you've been involved in lots of things outside of the work environment, so you're really sort of stretching and sharing a lot of stuff that you've been doing beyond that.
Yeah, so I think definitely. But yeah, I think with my involvement with IIBA UK, for example, I think it's as one example, I think it has provided me with, I suppose, a greater, sort of variety of perspectives that I'll be able to sort of share within my internal capabilities. In which case helps to elevate. But I think this works both ways. So people within organizations could definitely contribute a lot to the wider community. And I think this kind of happens in a kind of a round sort of cycle, and creating that positive, I suppose, environment where there's a safe space, and we'd be able to share some synergies, which is really important in this profession in business analysis. I think there's so much more growth in this profession that is yet to be uncovered, and this can only be done by future generations. So I think it's just really important to keep that energy going, and making sure that we are involving those of future generations, and also inspiring ones to come into the profession.
And it makes me think about purpose there, Christina. You think about legacy in terms of your impact on the profession through some of the work you're doing, obviously with IIBA UK, and then also you're also get involved in conference organisation and exam writing and even doing this pod, contributing to the wider profession to help others, and so to try and have an impact.
Yes, I just personally, I think it's really important because I thought back of my, I suppose, more rookie BA days that I had when I just started in the profession, and I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without a close knit community and with mentors. So I think it's, from a personal point of view, I would just love to pay it forward, to make sure that I am passing on some of my lessons learned to people, so that I suppose it helps them to well to I suppose avoid some pitfalls that I've experienced, or get them a bit more ahead, and I suppose give them some heads up for any sort of useful tips and advice in their career. So yeah, I think definitely just wanting to sort of share and inspire future generations in that respect. And I suppose me helping out with the conferences, it definitely helps to expand one's networks, and definitely get to see how BAs work in a maybe more operational setting. I think that's really interesting, as opposed to working in projects together. See how you can actually apply common business analysis tools, techniques, or business analysis for your thinking in different scenarios. So it does expand one's mindset as a BA. So I think that's really fascinating.
So how did you, what was it that sort of triggered the start? Because there must have been some seed that suddenly you thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a go at that. What was it that sort of got you over that threshold from, I'm just going to stay here and keep my head down, to, no, I'm going to shout from the rooftops? I'm not saying that's the first step. Maybe that's not the first step, but.
So getting involved with the wider community, I think it stemmed from, as I mentioned, I had a great community that I sort of already am working with. Some of my ex-colleagues actually were involved in volunteering for IIBA UK. So that's how I got to know about it.
Yeah.
And I started to think, well, I don't know what I don't know as a BA, and I've never been part of the wider professional community before. I've career transitioned in the past, and before I was a BA, I've not really been part of the professional community myself. I don't know what it entails. So I just thought, well, let's go explore how other fellow BAs might approach a similar situation. I suppose the first step would just be, well, establishing contacts, and getting to get to know some of the names in the profession, and getting involved with some of the webinars and events. And once you do that, I suppose it's more of a flow of conversations to be had, where you can ask, I suppose, more specific questions, and get their take in a safe forum. So I think for me, it was really sort of curiosity. If you don't take that step in establishing contacts and getting to know some of the names in industry, then you almost be, I suppose, you're stuck in this bubble. So I just wanted to kind of step out of that for a little bit, of that comfort zone, and to see and learn from others.
What would you add to that, Jonathan? That bursting the comfort bubble.
It's that, yeah, because you could stay inside your project confine or your organizational confine, and sometimes you find even within organizations the BA professionals aren't talking to each other. So they might sit on another side of the building, or maybe, I know virtually it's not quite the same, but there's BAs in the organization you haven't reached out to and shared knowledge and experience with. And then outside of the organization as well, it's I suppose it links to curiosity and wanting to learn and explore. And I know, Mike, we've been talking a lot about the growth mindset, and thinking about, well, how can I learn from other people's practices, experiences? How can I learn about standards that are applied in different ways in different organizations? And you've got to be really curious, absolutely, and also you'd be confident enough to ask the question and say hello and start the conversation. And what I've found, particularly in in the communities I'm involved in, people are really receptive to the sharing of ideas, and generally really quite happy, passionate people that really are focused and dedicated on this business analysis profession. I love going to the Business Analysis Managers Forum, for example, and if you ever get the chance to go, for those of you that haven't, it's a sharing of knowledge, insight from business analysis leaders, and you're just hearing different views, different perspectives, and it's I find it really beneficial, and I'm looking forward to one that's coming up actually. So
Me too.
And then things like the BA conferences, the webinars, or even the local business analysis events, particularly ones that the IIBA UK chapter is involved with, but also ones that are outside of that. In terms of, like, I think, Mike, you're involved in one in Nottinghamshire, but there are others, aren't there, that you can just get involved and be brave and put yourself forward, and take part.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to get involved in. I found the BA community is so friendly and so supportive, that you share, and people appreciate it. They're encouraging, and you just get going, don't you? It's making that first step to say, well, kind of put yourself at the front and then share something, and once you do that, you move on from there, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. I think after taking that first step, I don't know about you, but I certainly felt that wave of like really positive energy that makes me more motivated to try out different things in my organization, in my engagement. So I think it's just being able to create this environment that's not just for i.e. your organization, but also external. So we have this. You have this safe space internally and externally to share your ideas, and also, take ideas from. So it's just been really empowering to be able to open up exchanges with people internally and externally, and having that kind of powerful synergy. I think it does help to build on that growth mindset. It makes people more open-minded, and so I think it's good to also good to draw people in. I think it's like I say, kind of taking that first step, but equally important, I suppose, once you're more comfortable in that wider environment, it's also good to give back. It's also good to think about the next wave of business analysts and how we're able to help them on their journeys. Going back to the impact theme there.
Yes, yeah, I mean, that's it. So I think if you look back and you think of all the people that have inspired you think, well, who's going to be inspiring the next generation? And yeah, that's great, doing all of those things. Anyway, I think we could probably talk for hours and hours, but people obviously going to need to refill their coffees now. So I'd like to draw this to a close. I'm sure we can talk again, Christina. So thank you for joining us today. If you have any ideas for future episodes of the BA Brew, then please drop us an email at babrew@AssistKD.com. Thanks a lot, everybody, and see you on the next brew.
Thank you.
Thank you.